Hey guys, it's Coach Gaglione. Here's another edition of our Meathead Monday Tips, and today we're talking about starting your deadlift from scratch. So maybe you're a beginner, maybe you're an older person, maybe you're a youth athlete, and you want to start to learn how to deadlift, you want to get strong. Deadlift's one of those exercises, some people call it the king of all lifts, and it's because it's one of those things that it works your full body, it works a lot of different muscle groups, it's going to help kind of deliver a lot of strength, a lot of power, no matter what your goal is. We believe everyone should be doing some form of squat, bench, and deadlift that's appropriate for them. We want to think about if you're a coach, if you're dealing with athletes, what do they have, what are they going to own, and what can they tolerate. So we're going to think about that in terms of range of motion, in terms of exercise selection, in terms of loading, frequency, and all that good stuff. So the first thing that's really important is understanding the difference between, we call this like a kind of a squat and hinge continuum. And a conventional deadlift is kind of somewhere in between, a sumo deadlift somewhere in between. So in terms of a deep squat, the ultimate example of that would be like a high bar squat, a front squat, maybe even an overhead squat. So something where it's like a lot of knee and hip range of motion. So there's a lot of hip and knee bend. In terms of a hinge, that's going to be maximal hip bend and minimal knee bend. So if you think about like a stiff leg deadlift, a good morning, a Romanian deadlift, like a back extension, which we really probably should call hip extensions, but that's going to be more of a hip dominant motion versus a knee dominant motion. The conventional deadlift is going to fall somewhere in between, but we always recommend that you learn how to do a hip hinge properly so you kind of understand the difference between. Also, the kettlebell swing comes to mind as well. We don't really do too much of that, but that's a topic for another day. So the first thing we're going to work on is a hinge, and the first thing we want to work on is a hinge with a body weight. We're going to show a couple different variations of the hinge with the body weight. We like to use kinesthetic cues, so something that we could feel and touch. So we like to go against the wall, and we'll show this from a couple different angles. Feet about shoulder width apart, so this is going to be kind of like a conventional stance. I like to instruct the athlete just to keep a soft bend in their knees. I'm going to explain what that means. This is bent, this is straight, this is soft. So just a soft bend in the knees, and the reason that it's going to take the hamstrings a little bit off tension, so they're not super long. They're not super tight, and it's going to allow us to sit back a little bit more so we get a little bit more hip flexion. The more hip flexion we can get, we have more potential to work our hip extensors, our glutes, our hamstrings, and the lower back stabilizer muscles, okay? In terms of squatting and deadlifting, we want to keep the ribs cage stacked over the pelvis, so I'm not going to be overly arched, I'm not going to be overly flexed, I'm just going to be stacked right here. So with my knees unlocked, I'm going to push my butt back, and I want to just try to graze. So very common cues, we've been talking about the cloud technique for the bench, the squat, the deadlift. Same thing here, I don't want to just fall through the cloud, I just want to touch the cloud. Or you can pretend like there's eggshells, whatever you want to say, but I'm not supporting. You're going to see a lot of athletes just kind of plop like this. We're going to just graze. If they're having trouble with the range of motion or just having trouble with the pattern, I like to add the arms involved. So basically, you're going to start with the arms extended. The more I flex the hip, the more I'm going to flex the shoulder. That's going to help kind of elongate the spine, make the spine nice and long and straight and get a full range of motion at my hip. So the more I flex my hip, the more I flex my shoulder. So I'm touching it pretty easy, so I'm just going to inch up a little bit. I want to try and get as much range as I can. Still feeling it. And I just want to get to a point, so right about there, I'm feeling a big stretch in my hamstrings, and I don't feel like I could touch the wall any further. Okay, let's say I don't have a wall for whatever reason. Another drill that you could do is kind of what's called a box deadlift. You could also do this exercise with a barbell as well, which we could show. It's kind of a similar deal is you're gonna kind of push your hamstrings, push your calves into the pad to keep tension in your hamstrings. So just another variation if you don't have access to. Now if I did it wrong, if I squat too much, I lose the contact with my calf. So if I do it wrong, I lose contact with the calf. If I do this wrong, I'm not going to touch the wall because my knees are coming forward. So we're going to show the box deadlift one more time. Soft bend in the knees, pushing the calves into the bench the whole time. So that's a variation of the hip hinge as well. From there, we can load it. So we're going to do what's called a belly swing. You do this with a dumbbell or a kettlebell. I like to put it on the belly. So this is a drill I learned from Dan John. So we're going to also work on our brace at the same time. Shoulders retracted, butt to the wall, come up. Common mistake, if I just keep coming down, I'm just bending at my spine, not bending at the hip anymore. So only go as far as your hips. Once your hips stop moving, you stop moving. I can do the same thing with the box. If you don't have a wall, or if you don't have access to a wall for whatever reason, same deal. And I could also do it just freestanding. Now from here, if I want to load it a little bit more, I could certainly do it with 2 dumbbells or 2 kettlebells. Dragging down, and then this would just be what we call a Romanian deadlift or an RDL. And it progressed to, so a common mistake with the RDL, once the hips stop moving, people keep coming down. So we're bending at the hip, only bend at the hip, not the back, okay? From there, we can do either a trap bar deadlift or a kettlebell deadlift from the floor. So we're gonna keep the kettlebells over our midfoot, bend at the waist. So we're just gonna bend the knees just enough to keep our back straight. Leg press, hip extension. Hips, knees, knees, hips. So that's a conventional deadlift. With the kettlebell, you can also do that with a trap bar. You could adjust the range of motion based on the ability of the athlete and the mobility that they have. Make sure you check out our assessment video, and we show you an assessment using an active straight leg raise to make sure that they are able to safely pull from the floor. I'm gonna set up over the midfoot. So the setup is exactly the same. The athlete already knows how to root their feet. The athlete already knows how to breathe and brace and set their lats. And they've gone through all the progressions, so they should be ready to pull with the bar. So I'm gonna hinge, bend at the back, pull my chest up until my shins touch. So when you pull that slack out, you hear that click, slack comes out. And I'm gonna start with a pause first to learn the motion. Leg press, hip extension. Hips, knees, knees, hips. If the person squats the weight up too much, their knees are going to be in the way. If they're pulling too much with their back, they're not going to have contact with the shins. So make sure they have contact, push the legs, finish with the back and the hips. And again, if we can pull off blocks, we can pull off a rack. If someone has some sort of injury with their shoulders, they can use straps. If they're a competitive lifter, eventually they're gonna have to either hook or learn how to do a mixed grip. But nothing wrong. I would start off with double overhand as long as you can, and then try to do hook as long as you can. And if you have to go to a mixed grip, that'd be like the next progression. So start off double overhand here. I have stubby Italian fingers, but a hook grip, you're gonna kind of come in and then come around like this. I believe we have a video with Andrew Ottaway. We could look at this if you want to learn how to hook. I want to say, I don't know if he's pulled 4 times body weight in competition, but he's basically like a 4 times body weight deadlifter. He's pulled over 800 in the gym at 198. Very strong kid that we've worked with over the years. So we'll include that in the description as well. So if you want to hook, internally rotate and kind of come over like this. So it'd be like that. We'll just go here. So we're going to internally rotate, bring the thumb across like this, and then wrap your thumb around like this. Again, I'm not great at this, but we have had athletes have success with it. Anthony Gargulo is really successful with the hook grip. He pulled 777, I believe, at USAPL Nationals a few years ago. Nick, the Volkswagen Beagle, does hook. So we have some athletes that are successful with hook. That is, as a coach, that's one thing I'm a little bit limited on, but if you can't, we have videos and athletes who are successful with it. So from there, if hook is not good for you, if you have stubby Italian fingers like me, we're gonna go to a mixed grip. That's gonna prevent the bar from rolling. So my dominant hand is my right hand, so that's gonna be my overhand, and then we're gonna go to underhand with my non-dominant hand. So from here, I go under first, then over, and then pull in position. Since if you look at my carrying angle, my underhand's going to be slightly out because of the carrying angle. So you're not going to necessarily be 100% symmetrical as far as where you grab the bar. Your underhand's going to probably be out a little bit, prevent the bar from spinning. That's how you do a deadlift from scratch. Start with the body weight hinge or the box deadlift. And then I'll just show you the box deadlift with the barbell as well. So you can do this from the floor or just like a Romanian deadlift. So this is like a stiff leg deadlift variation. So I'm just keeping tension on my hamstrings. So this is a good way to do a Romanian deadlift to make sure you're not cheating. But you would start with the bodyweight hinge, the Dan John Bulgarian goat belly swing. We love that. You could load that, you could turn that into an RDL if you'd like, or you could just go into either a trap bar deadlift or a kettlebell conventional deadlift. And then you go to the deadlifts from the floor or like a block pull with the women's bar and go from there. So if this video helped you, if you want to get someone involved with deadlifting, because who doesn't love deadlifting? It's one of the best movements ever. So please subscribe, please share this with a friend. If you want to support the program, check the links below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon.